Welcome to our Space for Women show series 18, the role of diversity in training for the Moon and Mars analog missions. My name is Tihian Nguyen and I'm the Space for Women show host today. We know that analog missions are fundamental in human space endeavors as they prepare our species for future missions in the quest to explore Mars and other celestial bodies. However, analog missions do not only prepare participants to explore Mars, the Moon and other planets thanks to stimulating space-like conditions, but they also help researchers and scientists to innovate, test new technologies, conduct experiments and develop solutions to circumvent human-related challenges and to innovate and implement countermeasures for hazardous space risk. Here comes the questions to be addressed by our distinguished guests today. What is the role of diversity in these analog missions? With the aim to identify the role of these missions to support space explorations and the SDGs, and to describe how the degree of similarity of these missions to relate to real ones in space, and to address how analog missions prepare humanity for the future. I'd like to welcome our guest panelists today, Dr. Michaela Musilova. She's an astrobiologist and the director of the High Seas Analog Space Station. And Mr. Avgoustos Pantazidis. He's a career astronaut candidate, AdvancingX and an analog astronaut. And Mrs. Reut Sorek-Abramovich. She's an astrobiologist, Mars analog astronaut and scientist, and founder of the Dead Sea and Arava Science Center. And welcome all participants and the rest of the show team. Michal Ziso, the founder of Ziso, will today moderate Series 18. The floor is yours, Michal.
Thank you so much, and it's really good to be here and to have everyone on. My name is Michal Ziso. I'm a space architect, and I'm really happy to discuss the whole idea of space analogs and what it does. It's been a fascination and a research subject for mine. And we would like to start with Reut. Reut has received her PhD in 2013 in microbiology and immunology from the University of New South Wales, Australia. And she is currently a research fellow at the Dead Sea and Arava Science Center, Israel. She is an expert on astrobiology, extreme environment, fieldwork, and cross-contamination issues. Reut works as the manager and founder of the Young Astronaut Academy educational program at the Dead Sea and Arava Science Center, making sure high school students get a chance to learn about space and get engaged in space exploration. She is a co-founder and the current chairperson of the Israeli Mars Society and was the chief scientist for DMARS, the Israeli analog habitat. She is writing a children's book on astrobiology whilst avidly promoting space exploration and scientific thinking in the general public. As an analog astronaut and scientist, Reut is a popular public speaker in Israel via TV, radio, and other outreach vectors. Welcome, Reut. It's so good to have you here. It's always good to see you. And right now, I'll give you the floor. Please tell us a little bit more about what you do and how does it relate to analog missions, space exploration, and the whole role of women and diversity in analog missions. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Michal. Thank you for our host for the UNSA and for the Space for Women project. I'm very, very happy to be here today. I hope everything will work well from a technical point of view. And yes, I can share with you some of my experience in the last 3 years and talk about how we do mission analogs and how space exploration is important both for men and for women. What does it mean to do exploration on Mars in an analog environment here on Earth, and to do it together with our counterparts, men, and other basically professionals and talented people. And without much further ado, I will just go straight into my presentation right now. And I will go through it fairly quickly. So I hope you can hear me well at the moment. So the Ramon crater is where we do our analog missions at the moment in Israel. It's in the south part of Israel in the desert. It has some characteristics which are very similar to Mars. It has some clays, it has some basalt, volcanic activity. It's a big geopark that has very much the feel, the morphology, and the views of how Mars might look. And I was co-founder of DMARS, but also a participant in an analog mission in 2018. So it's very interesting for me to pay attention to the female, to the woman side, to how things can be done also from a diversity point of view. And we think that it's very important that we have diverse population participating in our analog mission. So for instance, in my mission, we were 2 women and 4 men, with 4 men in this mission. My colleague was a person called Jackie Fay, and she was magnificent. She was a amateur astronomer, very, very talented musician, and she was just full of energy, while I was the more much more calm inside my mission. And it's interesting to see how this developed further since 2018. Now, I've been involved in this project since the late 2017, mainly as the chief scientist. And I have to say that I've been very careful and very particular in making sure that I have as many women as possible in different aspects of this project. It wasn't easy. Some women thought, that it's too much, might take too much time from them, and they have all these very professional careers to go on. But I was able to show them the advantages of putting their time, volunteering, and going through this process. And I'm very happy to say that today there is a big science team that encompasses 2/3 women and 1/3 of men, basically guys, and very professional in helping us carrying out the scientific side of the Mars missions. And how does it usually go? I just want to give to our audience what kind of a background, what happens in a scientific mission by me and one of my colleagues, Yael Yair, a PhD student. And basically, we have different phases in when we do a scientific mission on DMARS. And what we're interested is getting experiments which are relevant for Mars-related research, which are relevant to support perhaps the health of the crew. It's from a psychological, but also from a physical point of view. So we start usually with the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and each one of these phases have their own products. And it's a very detailed process. I just gave here a very, very succinct table in how it goes, but it's a process that takes about a year in advance before the mission itself happens. And I really take into consideration, and everybody who's working on my science team at the moment, it's 8 people. And we also go into the analog astronaut selection advice, because after the science mission is designated and we know what kind of experiments we're looking for, that I'm very much interested to know that the team that I have will include not only a diverse background of capabilities and all sorts of talent, because they're going to be in a very isolated situation. When you do a Mars analog mission as opposed to a Moon analog mission, you're expected these people to be very much isolated, and they're not only supposed to have really good interpersonal communication with one another, but they also need to have quite diverse, I would say, scientific background in order to carry out different types of experiments, and also be very, very conscious of the safety issues that come with each type of an experiment. So basically, from phase 1 to phase 3 takes about a year. We participate not only in viewing and reviewing and preparing and finalizing equipment lists for different scientific proposal, and so on and so forth, but we also go with our Ramonaut selection committee, and we're very much involved with our head of human selection, let's call it this way, our chief analog selection. Her name is Neta Wiesel, and we also aim to give them all the training that they need in order to make sure they understand the experiments they need to perform during an analog mission. And we have different products for each of these phases. Just going quickly forward, we have other things that the science team needs to carry on during a Mars analog mission. And aside from a few days before, making sure, So usually a few months before the mission itself, we will make sure that the infrastructure is able to withhold and to properly execute in a safe manner the different scientific experiments. But we will also literally help with setting it up on the site and making sure again and again what is the go, no go situation, and whether from a safety point of view it's okay for the people who are doing this. I was very aware that, for instance, during the mission itself, when we have the mission control area, the personal private communication channel was very important between the different analog astronauts and their own. Each one was responsible for a different science experiment, and they had to talk almost every day or send a text because of the 20 minutes delay for each message. They had to send some sort of a text, and it was very important for them to have a personal private communication channel with the responsible science officer at the mission control. And we're very happy to say that till now we had a very happy crew with quite a lot of experiments going on. We had a very big mission planned for 2020 together with the Austrian Space Forum, which didn't happen at the end because of the COVID-19 situation, unfortunately. So at the moment, if you want me to sort of like talk about the gender percentage of how we operate in DMARS, then I would say that currently we have actually 8 volunteers in the science team. We have 50% women and 50% men. Total number of volunteers for each mission for the last 3 missions was basically about 100. And that does not include the volunteers for the science side of things. It's just that DMARS is a very, very big operation that needs to have a lot of components working together. So we do need a lot of volunteers to work with. And this is sort of my estimation of what are the total number of volunteers. In my eyes, we have too little women in our organization at the moment, but we're working very hard to maintain this, to maintain what we have, and also to get more women involved with this. I would say that the most important thing, if you want to attract more professional females to work, professional women, not females, but professional women to come and work with you, it's actually really important that you have already a really good base with a number of women professionals in your organization. So you cannot expect to have a substantial amount of work done with women if your organization has 10 men or something like that in their management team. This is no longer acceptable. From the number of research subjects, we had microbiology, we had nuclear physics, we had psychology, we had astrobiology, we had robotics, we had a 3D printing research subject. And the number of organizations that submitted research proposal for the 2018 and 2019 was a total of 16. The number is 4 times higher for the number of personnel who actually sent something for the science team that got curious and suggested a few things. But we have a very lengthy process of evaluating these proposals, and at the end we had 16 organizations that submitted that successfully submitted research proposals for our analog missions. So we had 18 Ramonauts in total that performed the different experiments in 3 different analog missions. Some of them were longer, some of them were shorter analog missions, and the total number of experiments eventually was 14 carried out. And at the moment, which is very important, I think, also to understand in comparison to real space mission, is an interesting number to say how many experiments that the crew can do per 1 mission day. And for us at the moment, it's 3 experiments per 1 mission day. And I do believe that depending on the type of experiment and how lengthy and what type of protocols you're putting into it and the research requires, but I do think that's a really good number for any space mission that happens also in real space. We have academic publication following our work, which is important for our supporters from the Weizmann Institute of Science and for the Israeli Space Agency. Both are scientific avenues that look at academic and at peer review paper in order to understand how successful this platform is. That's what interests them most. And one of the things that I found, again, promoting women into this area is through my Young Astronaut Academy. So this is a short film, and I'm gonna put it on mute because the sound is not that good. But basically, what you can see here is we have two girls They're 16-year-olds. One is Shalev, the other is Iris, and they're preparing for going out, their first EVA. And this is after about a year and a half of training and understanding not only different space sciences, but also preparing on this equipment and living together with their teammates in an isolated environment for 3 days and doing an analog mission, carrying out experiment. And what I like to show here is that they're teenagers and they have a lot of issues on their mind, but just notice how much focus their assistant are putting into making sure that everything is connected well. So their assistants are now helping them to don on the suits and making sure basically that the different connectors, the radio connectors, the air connectors, that everything is working okay. And it's a lot of trust building experience for this age group. And it's a wonderful thing to see how they are able to come together and how to work together as a team. And the girls don't only stay just within their own group, they also come and they interact with the other people in the group, and they learn how to trust. They learn how to say their opinion. A lot of times I notice that teenage girls do not like to express their opinions. For instance, they don't want to be seen as very aggressive or very extrovert, or they really don't like to take leadership positions. So one of the things we did in this program, and I keep doing it, I'm paying a lot of attention to it, is making sure that it's a very comfortable, not very, but it's a comfortable, relatively comfortable environment for young women, not only to learn sciences and to know better and so on and so forth, but also to feel what it means to be in a leadership position. So Iris, the girl here on the left, she's, for instance, she, in some of the pre-simulation mission, she was the commander of the mission. And she just told me afterwards, look, I got really tired on how making all these discussion and going into arguments. And we sat down and we discussed how she can address it better. And later on, she really hold on to that capability when going on in life. So this is a very interesting program. It's for high school students and it's supported by the Israeli Space Agency. And just you can continue how they're putting it on, making sure that it sits well. And on the left, we see some of their training before the simulation itself, how it looks like when they go out in the Israeli desert. It's very much preparing them in the most active way to what it's going to look like on Mars. We definitely have the area that looks like Mars, so why not train the people on it and make sure that later on they can choose whether they be an engineer or in mission support or any type of other aspect of a space mission. This is a great, great experience for them. We also go for active, inspiring public outreach. So I'm a very popular speaker at the moment, and I go to high school and I talk to classes full of girls that want to know how to do this, how to do that, how can I do all these things together with all my other activities, how do I handle the stress? So it's great. And this project has been very successful in inspiring women from different walks of life to come and join us and do an analog mission. So we have here geologists, we have musicians, we have biotechnologists, we have teachers, many, many teachers who like to join us and understand and bring that experience back to their students. And I'm all for it. I'm just all for it. And I always push forward to have as many women as possible in the missions. So it's a real partnership in exploration. And after you've done one mission, it changes your life. And if you are able to keep some of those people that you've done the mission with in your life, then it's a truly life-changing experience. And some of these teams are now like bonded for life, and they had a great time. The girl here in the middle, her name is Mika, and she was a chief scientist in DMARS DMARS Edu 03, and she took her job so serious. And she gave us some wonderful scientific reports about soil composition, about the different things that they noticed around, and so on and so forth. So it was a pleasure, absolutely a pleasure, to see students that you work with for a year and a half finally coming together and finally bringing these products. Women in general perform better on
Reut, we're losing you a little bit. I think we lost Reut for a second there. I'll give it another second. Reut, are you with us?
just wanted to say that as a scientist
okay,
and as I really care about my colleagues also overseas, and specifically here, if you're into analog missions, I always suggest that you follow your heart. I will be very happy to answer your question, what it means to be an analog astronaut, what kind of capabilities you might need to do that, what kind of a talent you need to do that. From my point of view, diversity is a must to be inside an analog mission in order to address different problems that arise and get different ideas on how to fix them. And I'm looking forward. This picture was taken from the first Middle East workshop for SGAC, the Young Space Generation Council from the UN. And it was a great pleasure to meet all the rest of the space generation that's in the Middle East region. And I had a pleasure, together with Liad Youssef, to meet, inspire, talk, and progress all our nation in the Middle East to go and follow our hearts, but in space. So anymore, I've been very lucky to be supported by all these different organizations through my work in recent years, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. So thank you very much, and I'm finished.
Thank you so much, Reut. That was fascinating, and I can't wait to hear more once we get to the Q&A part of our panel today. That was very, very inspiring, and I was very happy to hear all the incorporation of women and diversity in your missions. So thank you so much, and I think we will move on to our next panelist. Hien, I just want to make sure we are good. Just give me a thumbs up and we'll continue. Awesome. So our next panelist is Michaela Musilova. Dr. Michaela Musilova is an astrobiologist with a focused life in extreme environments. Her research experience includes working for NASA, University of London Observatory, Canada-France Hawaii Telescope, and being the commander of over 20 simulated missions to the Moon and Mars. Michaela is currently the director of the High Seas Analogue Space Station. She's also a visiting professor at the Slovak University of Technology, vice chair of the Slovak Organization for Space Activities, and adjunct faculty at the International Space University. Michaela has received numerous prizes and research grants, including the Forbes Slovakia's 30 Under 30 Most Promising Talent recognition. And this is an honor to have you here. It's a true pleasure to talk to someone who has been the commander of so many missions at High Seas. And we would love to hear more. So the floor is yours, Michaela.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Aloha here from Hawaii. Thank you also for scheduling the talk today at a bit of a different time so that I could actually be awake. It's still the morning here, so you can see the bright sunshine coming in. Yeah, so just looking at the time, I'm going to keep my presentation really quick. Hopefully sharing my screen will work. Hopefully one of you ladies can let me know in case it doesn't work. All right, so hopefully you can all see my presentation. Let's see.
Yeah,
okay, there we go. Okay, so there's a quick introduction to High Seas for those of you who are not familiar with it, and I will also tell you about what we're doing now and address the role of diversity. So this is the High Seas Station. It's the little white dome and white building next to it that you see on the picture. It's located.
Michaela, I'm sorry, we don't see the presentation just yet. Okay. Let's give it another second. Just to.
Is it just loading slowly? Okay. Yeah, I can't tell, unfortunately.
Let's give it another second. Let's see if everyone will be able to see it.
Michaela, you just select share screen.
Yeah. And share the screen. Let me double check.
I can see your screen now.
Yeah, so it's when I clicked on the presentation mode. Is that where you lost me here? Can you see it now? Yeah?
Excellent.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. I'll continue. So yeah, so the High Seas Station is the white dome and white adjacent building. It's located on the volcano Mauna Loa on the Big Island of Hawaii, about 2,500 meters up high. You can also see the volcano Mauna Kea on this picture. It's known for amazing observatories on the top, like Keck and SafeHT, for example. And so the station has been running since 2013. It is known, well, it started off as a simulation that was a combination of researchers from NASA and the University of Hawaii. And they were aiming to do long duration missions. So the first mission was 4 months long and eventually got all the way up to 12 months. And there was an 8-month mission in there as well. And their focus was on the psychology. So to see, you know, how people will interact together during these long duration missions, how to deal with problems that arise during such long duration missions, you know, how to deal with the conflicts, how to prevent conflicts. So in many ways, the crew members were actually the let's call them test rabbits in quotation marks. And so you would wear different types of sensors on your body that would monitor, you know, your stress levels and things like that during the mission. And of course, everyone had some research project of their own they were focusing on, but they were really the main part of the research. And just to give you an overview also of the site, but sorry, before I go into that, so these missions were going on until 2018. And then I became director in 2018, and I've opened up this site to not be just for NASA and the University of Hawaii, but basically anyone around the world who wants to perform research relevant, and not just to Mars, but to the moon as well. So now HI-SEAS is both a moon and a Mars analog station. And so before I go into the different types of missions, just so you can have an idea of what it looks like on the inside, here is a picture. It makes it look a bit bigger than it is. It's actually not quite that big. But the main parts are this one common room you see in the big picture, where you have desks on the right. An exercise area is essentially that flat floor you have in the picture. It's also kind of the main area connected to a sort of living room. We can see a table and chairs that's connected to a kitchen. So this is kind of the main area where you do everything from working, exercising, socializing, and sometimes doing research as well. And while it may look spacious, it does get crammed, especially when you're there on long duration missions. Upstairs, each person has their own bedroom. You can see in the picture on the top right. That's me there for scale. It's not particularly spacious, but we can make it work. Bigger issue is privacy, as the walls aren't super thick, so you can hear people snoring and things like that. So you want to make sure you have earplugs with you. And we also have the crews agree on different terms of how, you know, we want to function. For example, if some people need to sleep in the morning, you know, make sure you're not grinding coffee right below them in the kitchen and things like that. So it's all about finding a balance so that you can all be kind of, you know, doing the research you need to do, working on the things you want to, while also getting the exercise you need and not disturbing everyone. We have a mission control center on the Big Island as well. It's about an hour and a half away from the station. You can see some different shots there. And from here, we can monitor the systems in, oh, sorry, I don't know why it's doing that. We can monitor the systems inside the habitat, everything from the water levels, energy, CO2 levels, and things like that. We do it mostly just to make sure that the crew is okay, but we also ask the crew to send us reports every day during a 2-hour window in the evenings. That's when they have to send reports about what they did during the day, reports on their research, and also requests ongoing on EVA the next day. So extravehicular activity, that's where they put on the spacesuit and go into the field to do research. The crew cannot leave the habitat without the permission of mission control unless it's an emergency. So that's one of the main reasons we have mission control. But during some simulated missions, we also simulate different types of problems. So we can actually turn off electricity. We can create all sorts of difficult conditions just by pressing a few buttons from Earth and making the situation on the moon and Mars worse. We, of course, only do that, you know, when we agree in advance with the crew that they're okay to do something like that, and to kind of test their teamwork and problem-solving skills during such an emergency. And we also have a lot of remote support volunteers from all around the world. In the picture on the bottom right, you can see Professor Bernard Fong. We work with him on ESA missions. So we've had a series of missions that are collaboration with ESA, the International Moon Base Alliance, and different universities. And yeah, we've also had missions with just universities, for example, a group of Canadian universities last year, and so on and so forth. So we're opening up the station to not be just, say, NASA or not just space agencies, but anyone really that wants to do research that's relevant to helping humans get to the moon and Mars. As in many of these analog missions, this is an example of the kind of food we have. It's all freeze-dried. I always joke that, you know, chicken doesn't taste much different to beef, just the color is the main difference. So we always appreciate good chefs in the crew that can make this kind of powdery, granule food taste a bit better. And some people, I must say, are amazing and can make real miracles with that. We have a very strict water policy. Now we've restricted it to 7 minutes of shower time per week per person. So basically a minute per day. We've come up with this bucket system. You can see the red bucket in the picture. You fill it up. That usually tends to take about a minute to fill up that bucket. And then, you know, that's all you can use for your shower, or you can, you know, keep your shower time and then have a big, long 7-minute shower. Up to you. We keep track of that. We also keep track of water intake during some missions, which look at, you know, how much the humans are using. Even washing the dishes, it's all a bucket system. Except there's like an eco-friendly dishwasher. Sometimes we did experiments to see whether the dishwasher would save more water than doing the bucket system. It actually came to about a similar amount. But the idea is you really have to watch for everything that you have on the mission, how much food you have, how much water, and so on. Because if you were on the moon or Mars, you're not exactly going to get a resupply anytime soon. So you have to be very mindful of everything that you have. And then we do different types of research, just very briefly, geology studies looking at the different lava tube systems that we have. Oh, sorry, keeps on doing that. On the volcano Mount Aloha and our surroundings. Inside the lava tubes, you can find all these amazing deposits, which are interesting for astrobiology research. So looking, for example, for similar types of microbes on Mars, whereas on the moon, these lava tubes, these lava tunnels could be of interest of actually building habitats inside them. So if you look on the picture on the bottom right, you can see it's actually quite a big space inside some of these lava caves. And there have been some architectural studies looking at using them for habitats. Then we do the research, as I mentioned, on actual human beings. So this is a mission actually with Avgoustos here in the panel as well. You know, we were studied in different ways. Apologies for the presentation. So for example, that's in one of the pictures, you can see us breathing into a plastic bag to see how basically our use of air changes during the mission. Everyone had to do at least 30 minutes of exercise per day during the mission. So you can see on the bottom picture, Avgoustos doing some very dynamic exercise while other crew members were doing more yoga-based exercises. And then we also do psychological research where, for example, in the pictures on the left, we're wearing these mood sweaters that we're looking at our mood and seeing how different exercises and crew activities can make us work better in a team. And then we do also technological research. You can see different types of rovers and a drone that we're testing. We also had a collaboration with an organization in Hawaii called Pisces, which lent us their big rover. So a variety of things. And because we have so many technologies that we test and our systems are very technology based, we need to have at least one engineer in the crew. You can see the engineers here doing some maintenance, repairing things, reporting on the status of all of the different systems. And then we do a lot of education and outreach work. So you can see me here actually working on a student experiment from Slovakia. We organized a national competition where high school students got to design an experiment, and the winning experiment I took on the mission with me. And here the idea was to dissolve human hair and to use it as fertilizer to grow crops during missions. And it was actually a very successful experiment and worked really well. And we're trying to do more of these competitions. Actually, we do a lot of outreach work in Hawaii too. For example, the Pisces Stars program, where we have winners of that program come and spend some time at high seas. And it is aimed primarily at young girls to encourage them to get involved in STEM subjects. And then we also do a lot of outreach work with the media, again, trying to show people how relevant space research is to their everyday lives. And actually, even now during the quarantine time, a lot of things we learned during these missions, we were spreading information about that to help people deal with isolation. Sorry. And so briefly about diversity as well. Honestly, when I receive applications for crew members, I don't look at gender. Like sometimes even from the name, you can't really tell the gender of the person. And so, and I on purpose actually do that as well. First of all, so I don't have a biased view on, you know, who I'm choosing. I'm not, I do try to have a balance in genders, but honestly, it's not important for me, because I found that it can work either way. So on purpose last year, I had a crew where it was 5 men and 1 woman, and then the other way around, where it was 1 man and 5 women in a crew, just to test to see whether it really makes such a difference to have a different gender ratio. And I found that actually, you know, both work really well. Some different dynamics, some things we need to adjust for. So it was almost a little bit of an experiment for me just to see, you know, what the gender balance does. And so generally I do try and have a mix, so it's approximately 50-50, but I also really want to make this environment be open to people of the LGBTQ+ community. So again, that's why I don't want to accidentally make any kind of judgment based on someone's application. And that's why on purpose, I don't look at gender when people apply. And instead, I try and find a variety, make a diverse crew based on experiences, things they can bring to the table. And generally, it ends up being a mixed crew of some sort. And in this way, I'm trying to make it be more open, but it's something I'm also kind of working on. So I am taking input, especially from the community of people of color. I want to make them feel more included in the mission. So I'm consulting with some of them to see how we can attract more diverse crews in that respect onto missions. And the other important thing is varying the length of the missions. For instance, you know, in some missions that are, say, more experimental, where we're trying to see the diversity, how it plays a role in the missions, how it influences the way things go, they tend to be shorter, just, you know, to see how things work out. And once that's established, that actually doesn't really matter what the gender ratio is, then we extend those missions. So there's different factors you can play with to see, you know, what the influence is. But my general conclusions are gender doesn't, you know, make a huge impact on the mission. Missions are successful whether they're all female, all male, mixed, and with people of, you know, binary gender in there as well. So that's why for me, it's just not important. It's not an issue of what gender people are. I want everyone to feel welcome, and I will not look at that in an application. But I did find that diversity, actually from a cultural perspective, has a much bigger influence on how missions run than just their sex, put it that way, their gender. So I actually try and have people from all over the world, people of color, people of different backgrounds, and that tends to have a huge impact on how the missions work. So it's really a combination, and I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. Diversity helps with team dynamics a lot, how they work, but also just the share creative ideas that are brought to the table. So that's why it's very important to focus on that. And finally, these were just my contact details in case anyone is interested in applying for a mission at High Seas, wants to get involved in the research projects that we do. We also will be sharing information on social media. Our missions are actually restarting in a week. All right, well, thank you very much for your attention. And let me stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much, Michaela. That was very insightful. I have many questions, but I will keep them for the end. And I would like to move on to our final panelist. Last but not least, definitely, Avgoustos Pantazidis. He is a Master Science and Master Engineer, Mineral Resource Engineer, Career Astronaut Candidate, Analogue astronaut, and pilot in training. He has participated in several simulations of space missions as an analog astronaut, specializing in mapping and sampling of lunar and Martian surface, as well as in the construction of hydroponic agricultural systems for space application. Today, he is in charge of the Analogue Missions Program of the Research and Education Committee of the nonprofit organization Greek New Space Society, which is the Greek chapter of the American National Space Society. Welcome, Avgoustos. We're very happy to have you here as our champion man of the evening. And the floor is yours. Please share your presentation.
Give me 1 minute to share my screen. Okay. Let's start.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Jen for the invitation as a panelist at the SpaceConneX Space for Women show. Also, I would like to say that it's a great honor for me to be in the same panel with two women that are directors of space analog facilities. Even more because my personal dream is to establish a similar facility in Greece. So I repeat a few things about my career journey up to this point as an analog astronaut and as a career astronaut candidate, so that our audience gets to know me better. My academic background is on mineral resource engineering and my master's studies in geoenvironmental studies with a specialization in the identification of Martian analogues on Earth. Most of my published work in academic international journal and conferences is on this topic. It all started when in 2019 I was elected as a career astronaut candidate by AdvancingX, which is the first private company that prepares astronaut candidates to staff the crews of commercial flights. I have already participated in 2 challenges that I successfully passed, and I have 13 more that are remaining for me to fly in a suborbital flight in 2023. So as an analog astronaut, I have participated in 2 analog missions. The first one was in Lunares Research Station in Poland, where I had the honor to of being vice commander. The second one was in the High Sea Station in Konabik Island in Hawaii. So in both missions, I conducting research relevant to the cultivation of edible plants. So also at the moment, as you mentioned, I'm being trained as a pilot and as a certified advanced scuba diver, so as to develop appropriate skills as an astronaut candidate. Now, regarding to today's topic, first of all, diversity in terms of nationality within the analog astronaut teams is very important, since people from different nationalities bring different culture and therefore different perspectives within the same team, which is valuable when it comes for decision making or crisis management. So diversity in terms of skills is also very important, as people of different academic and professional backgrounds need to be included in an effective and high-performing team. These complementary skills render the team complete and ensure that in any incident that might occur, a solution will be found. Also, individual diversity is very important and needs to be highlighted. What I mean with this is that one should have developed several skills, sometimes very different from one another, so as to be able to support an urgent case or their own if needed. Now, diversity in terms of gender is of immense importance, as all genders should be represented. The female dynamics within a group and the characteristics that these dynamics entail are of great importance for the effectiveness of the team. Therefore, female and male dynamics may bring the appropriate balance within a team and therefore to contribute to its efficiency and high-level performance. This serves the 5th Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations, and it is very important to provide both sexes with equal opportunity in analog missions and in space exploration in general. So if someone is qualified, then they should be promoted to the appropriate missions. Finally, let me tell you an example from my personal experience. When I was in one out of the 2 analog missions in which I participated as a member of the crew, I had the opportunity to have a woman as a commander. So her leadership skills were remarkable. That's to her long experience. She had the insight on how to maintain the delicate balance that is required within the team, which was in confined space for for 2 weeks. Also, when I needed support and someone to talk to, she was always there for me. It was a very fruitful experience for me and I learned many valuable lessons that I'm going to use in my next missions, in which I will have selected to be a commander. My commander was Dr. Musilova, who is participating in the same panel with me today. Michaela, it was my pleasure to be a member of your crew. So I leave the questions up to our moderator to ask later on. This is the list of my partners that are helping me so far to achieve my goal and to become an astronaut. So that's all on my end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Avgoustos. And since you are the final speaker, I will just go ahead and ask you just one quick question. From your experience, is there an age limit, or like from what age can people apply to become an analog astronaut?
I think that the other panelists maybe answer better this question, but based on my experience, it needs to have at least a bachelor degree. I think the most calls asked for one, as also the AdvancingX call for a career astronaut candidates, you need to have at least one bachelor degree. So I think that you have to be at least 22 and older, or 23 to apply for Analogue mission, but maybe Michaela knows better than me.
There we go. Thank you for the word. And by the way, Avgoustos, thank you so much for what you said. It brought a tear to my eye. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so it depends, I think, from analog station to analog station. For us, like Avgoustos said, usually we want at least a bachelor's degree. But that actually means that, the age range can go really low, depending on, some people who fast track their studies. And then in terms of the upper age limit, for me, it's important that people will be physically safe too. So as you saw in some of the pictures, the terrain around the high seas habitat can be difficult to walk on. The lava rocks, the lava tubes, things like that. So I ask people to be in good physical condition, which again, the age limit can go quite up high depending on how people are taking care of their bodies. And of course, there's the mental aspect, with older age, it might be more difficult to have to deal, quote unquote, with younger people and things like that. So I look for people that have demonstrated experience being able to juggle these different things. And, the age limit can be quite high. I think the oldest person I've had on mission they were in their 60s or so.
Amazing. And Reut, do you want to add on that? Because I saw you have younger people. You're on mute, by the way. You're on mute.
Okay.
Sorry. So we have a different version of an analog mission for high school students. We really like to have people oversee their mission, not with them, not inside the habitat, but like in 100 meter away. And also there are differences in the delays between the messages between the habitat and the mission control. When it comes to the other missions, it's broadly speaking, it's very similar to what Michaela just said. However, we do have a behaviorist, and we have a psychologist, and we have a team of social sciences and someone who is a very experienced HR, basically a VP HR from a company in Israel, which has developed a very systematic way of interviewing and talking to people, as well as looking at their CV and making sure that everything is well. We have physicians looking into the medical and into the physical situation, just as Michaela said. And it's an all-around process, and we're looking for people who are space enthusiasts, but also would feel okay when they're stuck in an uncomfortable situation. It's out of their comfort zone. It's not as romantic as some people think it is. There's a lot of situations there that people just don't necessarily encounter in their daily life, and I don't expect them to encounter in their daily life. So I'm not looking for people who have done something similar like that in the past. I'm actually looking for people who are eager to explore their own limits in a way, and are feeling comfortable enough and confident enough and they are physically healthy and mentally and psychologically healthy in a way, so they can, together with their teammates, and it's a process of building the team before the mission itself as well, that they will be able to overcome any kind of conditions that might arise. And once again, analog missions are not as, depends which analog mission. You know, the International Space Station is an analog platform by itself. So I would say the most exact analog mission on Earth for a space mission would be the International Space Station as an analog platform for long duration missions in space. But on planet Earth, it's very hard to get that feeling of not only the isolation, but having this hostile environment around you all the time. Like, you just cannot make any mistake whatsoever when you step out of that locker, out of that pressure locker. That's a very big thing. And it's a big pressure point for us human, and it's hard to imitate it in most analog missions. But I'm with Michaela. I mean, we're looking at different aspects of the human that comes forward, and we're very happy. We had a wide selection of people coming forward to us, and I'm happy to see these talented people, how they experience it and what kind of research they're able to do in an analog mission. Thanks.
Amazing, thank you. Now we have a few questions from audiences from a few places. So maybe Alyssa or Bianca, you want to ask those questions?
Yes, actually. So thank you very much for your presentations, and it's following directly what Reut was answering. So I think it's a good question to open up to the three of you. When you were talking about the fact that you have psychology, you have sociologists, you are careful when you build your mission and the people that you select. So from the experiences that you've all had in those analog missions, what are the human qualities? What makes someone a good candidate, in the sense of what are the personality traits that you are looking for a successful mission?
Michele, would you like to go first?
So for me personally, I found that empathy is number one. It's just that trying to understand, you know, what the other person is going through. And this is one of the pieces of advice I was also sharing with people now during the pandemic, and people who had to quarantine. You know, they were literally kind of stuck in their own analog inside houses, sometimes with other people, sometimes alone. And, you know, every person reacts differently. Reut was talking about the different difficult conditions you have to face, and they tend to provoke people. They, you know, they make them overreact sometimes, or be very homesick, or whatever it is. And so it's really important to try and understand what's going on with the other person and be patient with them. Just realize maybe they're just having a bad day, or maybe, you know, they're just missing their loved one, whatever it is. And try and understand them and then talk to them. So communication is another really important thing. Just be open to discussing things. And most importantly, you know, just don't hold things inside, because then you will explode eventually, and that's going to cause trouble. So people, yeah, who have experience working in teams, who can be good leaders and followers, that, you know, listen to the other crew members, have patience with them, understanding. Those, from my experience, tend to be the best types of crew members.
Now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? So I don't review the applications for candidates, but based on my experience and what I try to develop and to improve in each mission. So I think that a good candidate has to be caring for the others. It's very difficult to be in the same place for 2 weeks or more with people who may you never have seen them before. I mean, when I went in Poland and in Hawaii, I met all my crewmates for the first time there, just 1 day before the mission. So it's very important to cooperate with people with different characters and to adapt in a new situation. Or also you have to have emotional intelligence, strong organized skills, crisis management skills, and as I said in my presentation, they are good at bad times during a mission. For example, one day it was a very difficult day for me. I had some bad news from Greece, and my crewmates, and especially the commander, talked to me, and I shared with her my thoughts and my problems. And this is very important to be caring with your crewmates. And if someone does something wrong, maybe the other panels agree with that. You must not accuse him in front of the other. So you have to take him in a way and talk privately and discuss about the problem and make him feel comfortable. So you have to be caring and to have patient during the mission, even if it's 2 weeks or 4 months or 1 year, as one of the high seas missions or the Mars 500 mission. So you must be patient and caring with your crewmates, and because the only you have the same goal, it's the achievement of the mission. So this is your basic goal for this is your basic goal for the rest of the mission. Even if it's an analog mission, even if it's in space, you have to. It's the success of the mission.
I'll just interject quickly, say one quality Avgoustos had that I really loved, and I was so glad he brought to the table, is very important to be able to admit your own mistakes and take responsibility for them. And not everyone is capable of doing that. And Avgoustos was definitely the star of that and set an example for the rest of the team. So that's also something very important. Everyone makes mistakes. It's normal. We're human, but admit to it and do something about it. And don't try and shift the blame to other people, which unfortunately some people like to do as well.
Thank you so much. Bianca, do you have a question that you want to ask to wrap up?
Yeah, so my question is, when you are done with your analog mission, actually what's next? Because not all of the analog astronauts are going to go into space. So how do you get to the next step? How do you step out of the atmosphere at some point?
Reut, you want to answer that to start off?
I don't have a clear answer for that. I think I don't have a clear answer for that. I think some of us would like to gain a lot of money in order to buy a ticket on Blue Origin or on Virgin Galactic if we can. Some of us continue to do research and use our skills to help mankind to understand processes and things like that, and use it in analog missions and help maybe different space agency in their own exploration and making sure the astronauts, not only the astronauts are safe and to live and work in space, but also to develop the technology and the services that support them. So you can go into commercial space in that aspect. It really depends which country you come from. I think Avgoustos is a great example on how you can go forward perhaps with that, but there is no clear career path at the moment, from my point of view at least, and from my background, going from being a researcher to an analog astronaut, and then to really ascertain that certificate that I am going to launch on mission STS whatever or whatever. Now it's going to be Crew Dragons, probably going to the International Space Station. So I would love to hear my other panelists' ideas and comments about that. That's a great question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think I would just say that I think that we have to make the differentiation between, I think the analog missions that we have are not to train astronauts, but more so to actually experience and explore and research how astronauts would act in space environments, Moon, Mars. So I think that's the main goal, and it's not for the analog astronauts to become actual astronauts. But I would love to hear Avgoustos and Michaela's take on this one.
I would like to say that since now there is only one way to go to space, only via public space agencies like NASA, European Space Agency, JAXA. So it depends from where are you from. I am from Greece. We're part of European Space Agency. My only I can fly on space only with European Space Agency right now, or if I was from United States, only with NASA. But in the future, we hope that we can fly into space with private agencies as private astronauts. So it depends where you're from. So an astronaut can be an analog astronaut, and he is an everyday analog astronaut because he tests the technology and experiments and the whole protocols during his training. But an analog astronaut, it's very difficult to become an astronaut. So, but for me, it's very priceless that I have lived the whole experience of a long duration space mission, analog long duration space mission, and I have lived for 4 weeks as an analog astronaut, and I know how is the experience to be on the moon, even if it's on Earth. So it's something like a privilege for me, even if I don't succeed my goal to go in space one day.
Thank you. I mean, we have another question before we move on to Michaela's take on this. Just to Avgoustos from our YouTube live audience, what were the 2 challenges that you had to do for advancing, and can you share more details about like the big challenge or challenges that you encountered?
I can share some information, but some things are confidential for the whole process, because every year they recruit more people. I mean, last year we were the first 6 candidates. Now they selected more. I think it's now 15 at all. So the first one was a buoyancy test in the Tahoe Lake in California. So we were underwater for hours, and we tried to perform some kind of tests underwater in the 10 minutes depth. So one of the basic requirements is to have at least 1 star of scuba diving experience. So the second one was my field of study. It was the exploration of a lava tube. So we went in a desert in California and into a lava tube, and there we had to solve some problems that astronauts could have on a lava tube on Mars. And why lava tubes? Because maybe Michaela can explain better than me later that lava tubes are potentially homes on Mars. This is the place that we are going to save us from storms, from the radiation. So we have to conduct research and to explore similar areas on Earth, like this on Mauna Loa in Hawaii, that high seas facility is there. So is placed there. So these are the 2 basic, the first 2 challenges that I passed.
Thank you.
For more detail, join the Career Astronaut competition. You have all the opportunity and the possibility to be selected. So
we'll send all the information. Thank you. And Michaela, do you want to give us your take on what?
I don't remember all the points I made in my head. So first of all, I wanted to make a point that even real astronauts, they have to train in analog environments, and it was mentioned before, but for example, they will go into a cave environment, these astronauts, and test how to live and work there for, I believe, a few days before being launched into space. There's also the NEMO facility, which is underwater, where they actually, it's a very close environment to what you have in space, because again, if anything goes wrong, you could actually die. So even astronauts have to go for these analog missions in preparation, and that's one of the main reasons why we do them on Earth. But it's true, most analog astronauts, unfortunately, have not become astronauts yet. But doesn't mean that what we do isn't contributing to space research. And that's why I mentioned even the experiments we choose to perform on missions have to be something relevant to helping humans get to the moon and Mars. So testing technologies that could one day in some shape or form be used on the moon and Mars. The psychological experiments are all feeding into data on how to train real astronauts for Mars missions and things like that. So there's a link, but yes, in terms of us individual analog astronauts of getting into space, it's like the two other panelists mentioned. Unfortunately, it's a very difficult path, very challenging. Nationality, unfortunately, really plays a role. So I'm from Slovakia originally, and Slovakia is not part of the European Space Agency yet. So I have absolutely no way of getting into space right now through ESA, NASA, or anyone else unless I change nationality. So my only hope is, well, change nationality or add another nationality to my list, or hope that the commercial space sector will develop and I could become a commercial astronaut. So instead of, I'm still doing everything I can to advance in that way. There's things that are kind of expected from astronauts to speak multiple languages, even to have scuba diving experience and things like that. But for me, I think the people skills is extremely important too. Being a very good team player, I know that NASA looks for that in their selection processes. They look for the word we and not I when you apply. And so the more experience you have working in teams, especially under stressful conditions like during analog missions, that will make you a better leader, follower, team player. And those, again, are things that can help you in the selection process later on if you were to be so lucky and actually be able to be selected somewhere. But I also use it as an opportunity to grow as a person. So I have all these mission experiences, but every time I learn something new, because there's always a different mixture of people on the missions. Some maybe different thing happen, or different types of research may make people behave in different ways. And everything is a learning experience. And, if you take it that way, you're just growing as a person every time. So there's, a lot of benefits to these missions and experiences.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I feel that we can continue talking about this for a lot longer, and we have more questions, but unfortunately we have to wrap up. So I would like to thank our panelists, Reut and Avgoustos and Michaela, for joining us. It was amazing and so interesting. I think we have more questions. Maybe we'll be able to send them to you. We'll make sure to post your information and your individual missions information for people to maybe try to apply. And thank you so much. And I will give the floor back to Hien to wrap up. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Reut, Avgoustos, and Michaela for sharing your great missions and making a difference out there. And apologies again, we will send out the details and the recordings and all of that to the audience. So last thing, I would like to take a group picture, the tradition group picture. And I think you are all on camera. There you are. Have a great morning, evening, and afternoon.
Thank you so much, everyone. Great talking to you, and thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Aloha. Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you, Bianca. Thank you, Alisa.
Everyone.
Thank you, Michal.